Well, good day everybody. I'm Mark Stevens and I'm going to present a brief overview of my achievements and lessons that I took away from the Communications Level 1 from Algonquin College. So, to start with, I'll give a bit of a background on myself. I'm 36 years old. I've been in the Navy for the past 13 years as a bosun by trade, and for the past 2 years I've been employed as the Naval Boarding Party Senior Instructor at the Canadian Forces Fleet School of Esquimalt. Some people might be thinking to themselves, well, what is the Naval Boarding Party? Sounds like a party. Well, it's a team of sailors that board vessels of interest in domestic or international operations looking for persons of interest, or drugs, guns, or intelligence. There's a picture there of some of the boys climbing up the side of the ship. The reason that I'm taking this course is for a variety of reasons. The institutional reasons are for career progression, which includes non-commissioned member professional development, and it's a requirement for succession planning purposes, which is really just a fancy way of saying to get promoted into a senior leadership position, we require some form of college or university training. On a non-professional level, it's been a while since I took an English course, so I thought it was about time I did a little refresher. I found the course both useful and informative, and the information that I learned will definitely be transferable to my workplace. So, speaking of the NCMPD, here's what the military calls a CAN4Gen message, or a Canadian Forces General Order. It's a bit of a busy slide, so I'll cut to the parts of most interest to me. Again, this might be a little busy to see, so let's take it in one more level, shall we? If you allow me to summarize for you, what this says is that because of my prior military service and qualifications, I am granted 9 credits towards my Defense Security Certificate, which means I only need to take the Communications Level 1 and 2, Business Computer Applications, and the Government of Canada Political Science course to receive a full certificate. Pretty good bang for my buck, I'd say, for this old sailor. Follow on to that if you're still tracking. It also allows me that if I choose to carry on and complete an additional year following those 4 courses to receive a General Arts and Sciences Diploma. Again, if I go that route, I would say it's a very generous offer as well. And if you follow me along one last time in this CAN4Gen, I'll take you to the directive, which state that it is my duty as a member of the Canadian Armed Forces to take every available opportunity to better myself for Queen and country, and to sweeten the deal, the Queen is going to flip the tab for the course for me as well, which isn't so bad. Back to the NCMPD, here's a chart of what is expected of each rank level that I pulled off the CIFNAS, or Canadian Forces Naval Operations School, because we love our acronyms. It's off their site, and it's on the developmental periods in the forces. The red arrow highlights where I am in my military career, and you can see that they start piling on the professional development. This course falls under the academic self-improvement, and after I've completed some college, second language training is in my future, because apparently it is important for a sailor to be able to curse in a variety of different languages. And here's another visual aid that I pulled off the Government of Canada website, and it represents the development of a member of the forces. They break it down by starting at the bottom and have a member finish basic training, which gives them the basics of their professional body of knowledge and the fundamental basic skills to be a soldier. From there, they go to battle school or other trades training, and they learn their fundamental soldier skills, whether it's through shooting a Carl Gustaf shoulder-fired rocket launcher or a Harpoon missile on board a ship. Next, they find themselves on leadership training and start taking on more supervisory roles. This would include PLQ, ILQ, and ALQ, meaning primary, intermediate, and advanced leadership qualifications, and also have more of what I like to call TLAs, or 3-letter acronyms. It also depicts that the 4 pillars are education, training, experience, and self-development, and they're the basis for professional development. Education enables us to think on our feet, so to speak. Training generates a learned response to a rehearsed scenario, and the more that we practice in a benign environment, the more likely we're going to react accordingly when the feces hits the fan, so to speak. Employment experience gives us the skill set to experience the myriad of problems that might not be mentioned in a book or in a classroom. And self-development is the ability for a member to continually attempt to better his or herself every day throughout their career, through courses or deployments, to become the best soldier, sailor, or airman that they could possibly become. The policy framework, for example, orders, policies, or directives, governs our rights or actions, and then all that fancy stuff culminates with the 5 developmental periods that I described in the previous slides. And at last it brings us to the apex of this building, or on a more analytical standpoint, to the tip of the sword, In turn, it's created the best possible service member that our taxpayers' money could buy. Back to the course though, as far as my progress went, I did start off a little bit slow. I suppose that I've become lazy over the years, and I tend to write more by feel than necessarily following the rules. In the past, I'd always been a fairly good creative writer, and this course has helped me fine-tune my writing, looking for little things that most people skim right over, such as writing in the passive rather than in the active voice. I also had some difficulty correctly citing references using APA style, but I'll get a little bit more into that later on. This graph gives a breakdown of my grades throughout the course. To start with the grammar quiz, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, that was a bit of a shocker. I ended up scoring a 3.5 out of 5, but I definitely had a throbbing headache after it was done. It had been close to 20 years since high school for me, so a lot of that grammar stuff went out the window with things like longhand division and chasing skirts around the schoolyard. Next was my self-improvement paragraph. I scored a 3.75 out of 5 on it, but I think the word count might have doubled with the amount of red ink that was put on the page by Claire. I suppose when I wrote it, I was playing the field just a bit to see how serious the grading system was on this course. I definitely set the bar low and gave myself plenty of room for improvement. Unfortunately, the improvement that I was hoping for didn't come on the reading analysis. I actually ended up dropping my score for that one, and I got a 3.5. Claire commented that my writing was sometimes a mix of abstract and formal, or sometimes down to earth, but also sometimes forceful. I can see how that would be a bit confusing of a paper to read. I suppose it may even be an accurate description of my personality if you ask my wife. Regardless, it gave me something that I could certainly work on and off the page. Next up was the Workplace Communication Wiki. On that assignment, I walked away with a solid 5 out of 5, and I was quite pleased with myself. I can't take all the credit, however I did do the presentation on the bosun call, and quite frankly, who doesn't want to learn about sailors blowing whistles? Then it was the dreaded research outline. Boy, did I underestimate the amount of work that was required to go into a research outline. I really did leave it to the last minute, as I thought it was just going to be jotting down a few points about what I intended to talk about in my essay and then hand it in. Then I realized that you pretty well had to write your essay to have a solid outline, so then the work started. I did score an 8.0 on the outline, which I was quite happy with. My thesis and purpose statement needed some work at that point, so I ground it out for the essay itself. I scored a 16.75 on the essay, and I can say that I wasn't overly shocked. The writing and content and the flow of the essay I did quite well on, but I bombed on the references. I think that I had watched around 6 hours worth of YouTube videos regarding in-text citations by that point, and it seemed like every one of them contradicted each other. I couldn't seem to find exactly what I needed on the APA handout that we were given for the course material, so I ended up winging it, and that just didn't pay off for me. It definitely could have been worse though. I guess my creative writing side paid off and made the content interesting enough, at least so that the reference areas weren't so blaring, I guess. And now it brings us to the recommendations. All the points that were noted on my assignments are going to help me become the well-rounded sailor that I discussed previously. I'm continuing on the Communications Level 2 course on the 4th of August so that I keep plowing through it while it's fresh in my head. In turn, it will all help me with the correspondence at the staff level, whether it's briefing notes for command, performance reviews on my subordinates, external correspondence through email or other means, or whether it's as simple as a Remembrance Day presentation for an elementary school, which I do every year. I did find the navigation of the course a little bit challenging. I often wondered if I was completing the required assignments, and at times the instructions laid out by Claire weren't as exactly as described in the course materials section. I think if there was one central link that was embedded into Claire's announcement with all the week's required assignments, it would have given me the warm and fuzzy feeling that I was meeting her expectations. I suppose that it just might be one of those perks of taking an online course that I'm just not used to. So to wrap up, I would say that this course gave me some great tools to take to my workplace. It definitely highlighted my strengths and weaknesses with regards to the writing process for me, and gave me some areas that I need to consistently work on to become a better writer. I will certainly apply the lessons that I've learned when I write personal evaluations, briefing notes, and external correspondence. And here are the references that I used when putting this presentation together, including the great picture taken by one of our combat cameramen, taken of our boarding party members training on HMCS Winnipeg before she headed overseas. Thank you guys very much for your time.